Okay, we're on page 237. We're talking about who's able to spin these tzitzit. Not tie them, spin them. Make the actual tzitzit out of the little threads. I said before that a person who does it has to say l'shem mitzvah tzitzit. They have to do it for the sake of making tzitzit. I think in general, a person should know that mitzvot that have a certain level of kavanah in them. It's a whole different experience of mitzvot. It's a whole different thing. Now, there's a famous teaching that if a person wears tzitzit, it saves him from doing avirot. It saves him from doing all kinds of things that are incorrect according to the Torah. But I saw in the writings of a Mekubal, I don't remember who, and this Mekubal said that only works if when you were twisting the tzitzit, you had in mind that they should save me from avirot. But if you didn't have any intentions, so what do you think the tzitzit are going to be? The tzitzit are going to be tzitzit, kosher, but they're not going to have any deep kavanot, intentions behind them. My wife is a descendant, the great-great-great-granddaughter of a Hasidic Kabbalist called the Or Pnei Moshe. The Or Pnei Moshe was the sofer of the Baal Shem Tov. He wrote his tefillin. And they say about Rosh Shlomo tell stories about his tefillin that when he would open it up, the letters actually had a light that would glow off of the cloth.
Wow.
And certain tzaddikim would only buy tefillin from the Or Pnei Moshe. He was like a different level of kavanot when he was writing tefillin. So maybe not glowing off the paper, but when a person has a chance to go buy something, tzitzit, tefillin, or to do it themselves, you have an option to tie your own tzitzit. How could you then say, I want the one that came from the store, or the one that came from the machine? You have a chance.
If you have the patience, but it's not so easy.
Okay, you're right, it's not so easy.
If I can bring it to your
But a person
strong.
a person can take the time. Every day you do a knot, the next day you do a next knot, another knot. It helps. When a person matzot. I don't know, my dream is one day to be able to bake our own matzot here. Why not?
Denver we used to bake matzot.
Yeah. It's an experience, take a day, the families, the kids, everyone gets involved.
You need to get a special,
right. But we like Sephardic matzot, soft matzot. What's the problem?
It's not that hard.
It's not so hard. We're able to do such a thing. Without the Shem, one day we're going to get to all these things. Not hard. 237. Haksharim l'tviat chutei tzitzit. Who is kosher? Who's able to twist the tzitzit? Not tie, twist the strings. So says the halacha b'wa, nashim ksherot, women are kosher litvot chutei hatzitzit afilu lechatchila. Even ideally, first preference, a lady is allowed to be the one to twist the tzitzit. V'tzicha lomar kodem atchalat hatvia, and she must say before she begins to twist, shetova l'shem mitzvah tzitzit, that she's doing it for this mitzvah of tzitzit. So of course there's always that guy that says, well, how could I trust her that she did it for the sake of the mitzvah if a lady can't give testimony in a court? Says, v'ne'emenet ha'isha lomar shetavta chutim l'shem mitzvah tzitzit. It's a lady is trusted to say that she did it for the sake of the mitzvah. That's the halacha. There's nothing here to worry about. A lady is kshera to do this. I was actually in a tzitzit factory once, and ladies were the ones who were making the strings.
Doesn't have time?
Doesn't have time, but he wants someone else to do it. Wants his wife to do it. 238. Tavan goy. If a goy, somebody not Jewish, twists these strings, v'Yisrael omed al gabav. This is a good question, because you can't expect from somebody who doesn't understand what tzitzit are to have consciousness of tzitzit. You can't go to Israel and go to Ramallah, open up a tzitzit factory and expect all the Arabs there to have in mind, this is for a tzitzit. They don't even know what a tzitzit is. The question is, what if I have a Yisrael omed al gabav? I'm going to hire a Jew to be the manager. He's going to stand over. Hey guys, remember you're doing this for tzitzit. Remember about tzitzit. He's always there. He's the mashgiach. He's the tzitzit mashgiach. Laharambam pasul. The Rambam says tzitzit are not kosher.
Literally pasul.
Pasul, I mean you couldn't tie, if you tied tzitzit with them, they wouldn't be kosher. Ulaharosh kasher, and to the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, they're kosher.
Who's Asher again?
Rabbeinu Asher is the father of the Tur. He's the three rabbis that Rabbi Yosef Karo relies on. Rambam, Rif, and Rosh. Now I have a question. We know the halakha is when Maran brings down two opinions, his opinion is always like the second one. I don't know here if he holds like the Rambam or if he holds like the Rosh. Because the Rosh is the second one, meaning he holds it's okay. On the other hand, Maran likes to follow the Rambam.
If the kavanah is the important thing with mitzvot, how is it even possible for someone who's not Jewish, or even a Jew who doesn't know about Torah mitzvot, to tie the strings? If you're supposed to have that in mind, it'd be like doing the matzah, l'shem matzah mitzvah. If you don't know it's a mitzvah, what happens?
Osmosis. Well,
Good vibes.
yeah, good vibes. Good vibes. Maybe the guy will convert.
If he's driving a convertible.
That's a good question. You have to look into the Rosh and see what's his logic. But suffice to say that Maran is somewhere in the middle. Maran seems to hold, the Sephardic poskim seem to understand in Maran that he prefers that someone Jewish be the one to do it. But if not, there's no other choice. Those are the strings that you have, so that's what you can do.
So
Now there's a practical ramification to this. Let's say you move somewhere, not San Diego, you don't have a Judaica store, you don't have anything, you don't have Amazon, you're not able to reach, you're living in a place before there was shipping, and all you needed tzitziot for now. You can go to the local store and buy strings that were not twisted.
But what store?
No, you wouldn't have such a situation. You wouldn't have a situation in which a non-Jew twisted them with a Jew being the mashgiach. I don't know what a practical ramification.
So
it says here in parentheses, whether it's written in parentheses here, I don't think it is, but it says in parentheses, where it says it is kosher, it says the custom is for a Jew to help him out a little, as we find out later in chapter 32, page 9, and chapter 14, page something.
You just read the Ramah for us. It says the Ramah, V'nohagim, the custom is Shisaya Yisrael Ma'at, that the Jew should help him a little bit.
Right.
And it gives you a few other places where it says that.
Sounds almost like a mashgiach.
Right. So this seems to be the Ramah's approach, and I would say that we probably should follow the Rambam. And not even that, the Ramah is telling you that's the custom, is somebody's on his back, making sure.
Yeah.
I see in the Mishnah Berurah that many other opinions don't agree. The Vilna Gaon doesn't like this. A number of other people. So suffice to say that most of the tzitziot that you're wearing were probably spun by Jewish spinsters. Spinners. That's the word.
That's spinning it a bit.
You know, spinster has another connotation.
Tzichin shzira.
Yes, it does.
Shzira.
Actually, that's interesting. The woman.
But most of the sits are made in Israel.
So that's why
I've been translating this whole thing for you wrong this entire time. So you can tell I'm not a farmer. I'm gonna get you a good English word. No, it's spinning.
spinning. It says
So what is twisting? What is that?
Yeah, I know the difference.
Okay. The next step, there are steps. You take the wool off the animal. You then
Card it.
what is it?
Card it. You have to comb out the knots.
Okay, combing out.
Yeah.
Then there's something called tvia, which I thought was spinning. I guess that's the spinning of the little strings. This next thing, shzira is when you take the little strings and you twist them together into one bigger string.
okay, so what they call that is intertwined.
Intertwining.
Intertwined, twisted.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to step 2. Tzichin shzira. Shzira is the twisting of the small strands into a bigger string. V'shiyu shezurim lishma, they have to be intertwined
That's what it says.
for the sake of the mitzvah tzitzit. Let's look on page 240, Halakha Yud Alef. Mitzvah min ha-mubchar. It's an ideal mitzvah. Lasot shezirat ha-chutim, to finally intertwine the strings. Mishmona chutim dakim ha-meshulavim ze bazeh. From 8 thin strings. So, how many strings do you have inside of? How many strands do you have inside of one final tzitzit string? 8.
8, okay.
And that's why if you'll take your tzitziot and you'll unravel them,
There's 8 of them there.
you'll find 2, but really there's 8. Okay? But I don't want you to take apart your tzitzit, so be careful.
Oops.
The reason for this. Let's look at the footnote. You see a footnote? Oh, but let's keep it doing. V'chein minhag Yisrael, this is the custom of the Jewish people. Mikol makom en ze ma'akev. In any case, this does not hold back the mitzvah. Meaning, it's not 8 strings inside of one string. It doesn't hold you back. V'kol shaya kol chut shazur mishnei chutim kasher tzitzit. And so long as you have at least 2 strings inside, it's kasher. Now the reasons for
Custom is 8.
8. The reason for this is as follows. Hine Baal Haitur. The Baal Haitur writes B'Shem Rabbeinu Yaakov, in the name of Rabbeinu Yaakov. She'aseh kol chut mishnei chutim. You should make every string from 2 strings. V'katav Rabbi David Abu Draham. The Abu Draham says, Sheyesh be'arba haknafim lamed bet chutin shzurim. That in every corner there are 34 strings that are intertwined. Someone help me out here with the math.
This would be like what, 4 tzitziot times 8?
8 times 4 is
Okay.
32.
Right, okay. V'chein timtza samech shehen samech daled, which is 64. I understand. Look here, tzitzit again. See how every tzitzit is made up of 2 strings? That's what makes the twist. Every one of those strings is made up of 8. So really there's 16 in one.
Oh, okay, 16 and 1.
I don't understand.
I don't understand either. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Look here, tzitzit, for a second.
Oh, saying that there's 2 strings.
There's 2
Each of
strings,
them
and each
has
string
8.
is made up of 8.
So 16
16.
times 4 would be 64.
Very good. Okay, that's very good. Thank you.
But each of those 2 strands, I think I misunderstood because you said 1 tzitziot is 8 strands. But
Right,
you're
but
saying that each of these have
one,
2.
right? Yeah,
and
very
that-
good. Very good.
And that
Very good. You hear what
because
I'm
Rabbi
saying?
Abu Draham was saying that you only need 2.
So 2, but 2 of 8,
2 of 8.
and that makes
yeah.
16.
Yeah, then times 4 is 64.
Very good. It says the Buraham Shen Samach Daled 64. Keneged Samach Daled Panim Sheyesh B'Kisei Kavod, corresponding to the 64 faces which are on the heavenly throne.
Really?
V'chen timtza Samach Daled Tevot. You will also find 64 words. Min daber el bnei Yisrael v'asur lehem tzitzit, from the beginning of the commandment of putting on tzitzit, ad ani Hashem Elokechem, until the words I am Hashem your God. So the last paragraph of Shema has 64 words, corresponding to the 64 strings in your tzitziot.
The 64 faces, is that like the ox and
I'm not
ram?
I'm not entirely familiar with the Kisei Kavod, but I'm thinking.
It's in the
Yes, yes.
right?
L'rmos kila shechina k'negdot, have in mind the shechina is in front of you, like the Kisei Kavod. So yes, that's probably what it's referring to. V'chen katav Rabbeinu B'chaya. Rabbeinu B'chaya writes, this is Rabbeinu B'chaya on the Torah. Shesh ba'arba knafot lamed bet chutim shem samach daled v'isbir advarim al pi HaKabbalah. Rabbeinu B'chaya explained the 64 according to Kabbalah. 2 times 34. 2 times 32. Some want to even read this into the Rambam. Okay, let's leave it the way it is. This is the halakha, the customs. Not halakha, it's a custom that most people follow. Any tzitziot that you have are made out of this.
So the process would be, you take 8 thin strands of kaf,
And spin them into one string.
Then you do that again for another. Then you wrap those 2 strings around each other.
Right, and that makes up one of the 4 strings of the tzitziot.
Right.
Right. Details. Every detail means something, though.
It's like reading the laws of the Beit HaMikdash.
Right.
But
beam and length. And
it's very hard when you look at the tzitzit to see if it's right with all the knots going around. You can't follow the strings to make sure it's done right.
Right, so the assumption is that you either trust the person who did it right, or you yourself is the one who tied it.
You look at different tzitzit and they're all different.
What are you trying to visualize?
Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to see if everything is there that should be there.
Should be there.
Okay, we'll wake Barry up with this one. Just make sure the guy who sent you doesn't string you along.
Well,
that's a second string.
You're
on the second string team.
Was he worth waking up for?
You're strung out.
V'ra'ui, 241, under the 2 lines, V'ra'ui. And it's proper, shiyu chutei hatzitzit na'im, that the strings of the tzitzit should be nice, pleasant looking.
Where are we now?
241, under the 2 lines. K'mo shneimar, like it says, Ze Eli v'anvehu, this is my God, and I will beautify him. V'darshu Chazal, and our rabbis explain in Masachet Shabbat, hitna'eh lefanav mitzvot, make the mitzvot beautiful in front of him.
So it's Hadur Mitzvah.
Hidur mitzvah, very good. Aseh lefanav tzitzit na'eh, make a beautiful tzitzit for him. V'lachen lo ya'aseh chutei tzitzit avim yoter midai. Don't make the tzitzit strings too thick, or dakim yoter midai, or too thin. Ela be'ovi benoni, rather a medium thickness. That's a good question, because as time goes on, the tzitziot seem to get thicker and thicker and thicker.
And you see them being sold with the premium ones really thick.
Right.
You know.
Like my tzitziot strings
Charge more.
Yeah.
are what you would call thick tzitziot.
Yeah, they
Now
are.
these are actually not the thickest that are out there. I mean, you got guys walking around with like ropes in their pants. Like there's a whole new world of tzitziot. The reason I buy these tzitziot, I only started when I started wearing Kehillat. See, because these strings are what
8 around.
yeah. Now these are the tzitziot. These are like very thin strings, and these are the standard. I would say this is standard tzitziot strings, but they rip much. They snag like one little tug on a chair, and this one went. And I found that my Kehillat kept losing strings, so I invested in a thicker pair just for practical purposes. Now, somebody who puts their tzitziot in their pants might not have this problem in the first place, but I found myself constantly snagging my tzitziot in different places, and that's why I went thick. But nobody has to, like, I'm sure, as I've seen, and I just saw a video from a wedding in Israel, and I saw a guy with tzitziot, forgive me, he's a very famous singer. His tzitzit, not the knotted part, meaning after the knots, there's the free strings, the strings went from his belt, from his waist, until his ankles.
He was of average height.
Yeah, it was a normal height, like a normal young guy in his 30s, and I couldn't believe seeing such a thing. Like I couldn't. Those are tzitzit, you look like a clown. I mean, so everyone's got his own definition, but nice. These are supposed to look nice, whatever that means. I'm sure it means different things to different people.
There's an elegance to Jewish appearance, like a scholar.
Right.
It's not supposed to be like a schleppy.
I just saw there was a funeral yesterday in Israel. Not a family. A rabbi passed away, and my wife and I were looking at pictures of the funeral. And I said, "It's very interesting that these big rabbis, they all look like one. Every one of them looks another schlepper from the next one." And I'll tell you, there is a teaching of the Talmud that says that the rabbis outside of Israel, the rabbis in Bavel, are careful to look nice, and the rabbis in Israel are not. And it almost says it as a bad thing about the rabbis in Bavel. Like they're so busy about which costume they're going to wear or which clothing they're going to wear. But on the other hand, there's something nice about it. The Rambam says that a rabbi is not allowed to wear king's clothing, but he's also not allowed to dress like a simple person. He has to dress in a certain way that brings dignity to his character. Now, in our age today of everyone being equal, these kind of things make us feel uncomfortable a little bit. Rav Aviner, in Israel always speaks about, Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook used to always tell us you have to wear hats, black hats and suits and da-da. So they finally asked the Raviner, but Rabbi, you don't wear a black hat. You're busy teaching us that we must do it, but you yourself don't do it. He says, what can I tell you? I didn't reach that level yet. Now he's joking, obviously, right? He says, no, Rabbi, really, what do you mean? So he pulled out his Gemara. He said, in Bavel, the rabbis, all they could worry about is what kind of hat they wear. He said, but in Israel, we don't dress the part. And the truth is, if you didn't know who Rav Aviner was, you'd see him walking through the old city in his sandals and his pants and his shirt. You would think he's just some guy got to the end of the kotel. You wouldn't realize he's one of
His
the...
motto is, do as I say, not what I do.
He was teaching a halakha, and I think that halakha... I'll tell you the truth. The truth is that if a rabbi were to walk into a room wearing, a t-shirt and jeans, he could be Rav Elyashiv, but nobody would listen to him. And I don't know that I blame the people. It could tell you something about people. People in general are attracted to things that look nice, not to things that are nice. But at the end of the day, there's what to be said for this dress. There is a refinement a Talmid Chacham has to walk around with. And I sometimes struggle with the way it looks in other places. Almost like when all the religious people get together, we let down our guard, and you find people that won't shower for a week, or people who they wear stained clothing, or people who...
Which is halakhically not permissible.
No, of course, these are all problems. These are all...
Clean clothes.
Rambam says that if a Torah scholar finds even a stain on his clothes, he has to run home and change his clothes.
Yeah.
It's for this reason, by the way, that it's good to wear dark colors. Just so you know.
It does like
Dark
stains
colors.
better.
Yeah, it's harder to
Take
stay.
it out of the white shirt and the wine stains.
Yeah. Or
Dark
food
colors.
stains.
Not red.
Not red.
Yeah,
Well, anyone knows it's spilled wine on it.
yeah. I've got my red shirt at home.
You want one for your birthday?
Oh, here.
Let's see the top of page 241. Says Maran in Shulchan Aruch, Im nitparku mishziratam v'nasu yud vav. If they separated, it's just separated, and they became how many strings? 16. So what do you see here, by the way? See two things. You see that even the Shulchan Aruch had in his tzitziot 16 strings, 8 and 8, because he's saying if they fell apart and they became 16. Ksherim, they're kosher. You also see one more thing. Maran uses the writing Yud and a Vav, which today we would always write Tet Zayin. We don't write the number 16 like this, rather we write Yud is 10 and Vav is 6. Right? Rather today they write 9 and 7.
Why?
They don't want to write Hashem's name, so to
I
speak.
see.
Either Maran didn't care,
Yeah.
or whoever printed the book wrote it however he wanted. You have to have at least enough of the strings which are twisted in order to be able to tie a knot with. An aniva is like a tie, literally, but a tie like this on my neck. But you have to have enough string that's left twisted. So if you ever wondered, like, how far up can the splitting of my tzitziot go before I should start worrying about it, enough to be able to tie a significant knot over there. And says the Rama, Hagav l'chatchila, and ideally, Tov likshor hachutin lamata kidlkaman. It's important to tie. It's a good thing to tie knots at the bottom of your tzitziot.
Can I ask a simple question here?
Yes.
Why does the text switch to Rashi at this point?
That's where the Rama starts. Yeah, that's a good question. That's how we know who's Shulchan Aruch and who's the Rama. So I used to tie knots at the end of my tzitziot all the time because my tzitziot fray.
Right.
And the reason for this, according to some opinions, once the tzitziot fray, they might actually be not kosher. Even though Maran doesn't hold this opinion, there are such opinions. And so our rabbi suggests that you tie knots at the end. So that's a knot at the end of my tzitzit. Also another knot here at the end of the tzitzit. What I realize is, as the years have gone on, at least the company that I buy my tzitziot from, they become much better at sealing the tips. Some of them dip them into glue at the ends so they don't spread. And actually, when I'm busy tying little knots at the end, it separates them. So in this particular tzitzit, I don't tie knots. But as soon as I think that it starts to separate, I tie a little knot right at the end of the tzitzit. A person can do that. It's not so hard. And if you're worried about your tzitzit frame, so tie knots. Or they have some. I once learned from a Chabad yeshiva boy that you could take them and dip them into clear nail polish.
Ooh.
Yeah, the tips. Or you can dip it into super glue. I don't know. Everyone's got their own thing.
Wow.
People are so
But-
expensive.
Super glue. You might get your finger stuck to it.
But I've never tried them. I'm just telling you what I've heard from people. All right.
Polish.
So this is Neiman.
Yes.
This is what he was mentioning last week.
Yes.
I got it.
It's in my card for.
It's so amazing.
It's only $30.
It's in Hebrew.
Good.
The original.
Great time. I wish I had the Hebrew.
I read it to you because I can't read it.
Because then you can.
I'll get this from my.
So I was wondering, at what point was this chronologically set up? I know this is a codification of the law, but at what point were the tzitzit normalized into this fashion?
Which fashion? 8 and 16 and
Yeah,
those things?
I mean,
You're finding things as far back as the Rishonim. So around the Rambam, a little bit earlier or later, something around there.
Okay.
It's a good question.
So, and before that, they
Maybe we don't. It could have been done, but we don't have records, or we don't have anyone writing these things down. As Judaism went on, people became more and more. I'm going to use the word obsessed, not in a derogatory word.
No, I know.
To write,
Focus.
to record the customs that people did. Meaning, we were realizing that we were slipping out of our own country, out of our own land, out of our own culture, and hey, we better write this down, or else someone's going to forget.
Yeah.
It's almost like when a certain Hasidic group will write, oh, well, this is what we did in Poland. Well, the reason they write it is because really people don't remember anymore what was done in Poland, and there have been so many mixing of Jews, so they want to write it down. And I can't tell you that in Morocco, people spent as many hours as they do today writing about the customs of Morocco. In Morocco, that's just what they did. But once they left, they all of a sudden, let's write down and record which direction, what color were the chairs in the synagogue, all kinds of things that people write down. They're not necessarily a bad thing, but we're afraid of forgetting. They begin to be recorded. So it could be that it was done earlier, we just don't know about it because the rabbis weren't afraid that people would forget. Now there is an opinion, and this opinion is that you should not tie knots at the end of the tzitziot, because it might be adding to the knots that are supposed to be in your tzitzit in the first place.
They're not supposed to add on.
This is
to them, that's
right. This is brought down by the Magen Avraham. It's an Ashkenazi commentator in Shulchan Aruch. He seems to take this seriously. He's worried about it. A number of other poskim have pushed this idea off, like it's not the end of the world. The Arizal didn't seem to mind when people did it, and so there's no argument about it. But if you'd want, maybe you shouldn't tie knots at the end if you're worried. But it's an open case. Either way you go, you can have on whom to rely. You're not allowed to tie these little knots though on Shabbat. So if you're like the guy who once sat next to me at shul and he was busy spending the whole tefillah tying these little knots at the end of his talit, every little knot he made is a prohibition of Shabbat. The separating of the tzitzit is kosher according to most opinions. Only according to some is it a problem, but nobody would agree that you should do that on Shabbat.
It's not a brura then.
It's a matter of making knots.
No, I'm talking about the separation.
Of separation? No, that's not. It's a good point. It's not what Chazal would mean when they would say separating.
So the knot at the end of them would be considered to be a permanent knot, because isn't it permanent?
Yeah,
knot?
so-
Yeah, you're not planning on taking this out. I mean, it stays.
But if it's an impermanent knot,
Yeah, I mean,
tying
you
your
can
shoe,
make-
I guess, would be.
Yeah, that's what. So you couldn't you tie a temporary knot in the tzitzit on Shabbat
What's the point of tying a temporary knot at the end of the
until
tzitzit?
you're through wearing it, and then you'll fix it the next day.
Fixing it is tying a knot.
That's later though.
No,
but
he's gonna
Saturday
take
night.
blue.
No, what I wondered very often when I wear a
Lifestyle
I mean,
polish.
not when, but yeah, I mean, not if, but when I wear a talit on Shabbat, whether you can look at the tzitzit to see if they're coming apart, because I mean, are you not supposed to examine the tzitzit?
No, you can. Of course you are. You just don't really do much about it on Shabbat.
You just sort of say, oh well.
Like Shabbat has its own class of halachot. Would this be considered to be a malacha to do that?
Yes, this would be, and like you said, Shabbat is its own class of melachot, and so we'll get to Hilchot Shabbat B'ezrat Hashem one day. But I don't know that. I don't know that you need to be tying it on Shabbat. You could wait until Motzei Shabbat. Now, obviously, there are ways to tie things on Shabbat that are okay. Yes, there are, but here the poskim are saying that it's a problem.
And it's not going to puzzle your talit.
If you don't have it, right, according to most opinions it won't, especially Shulchan Aruch. So So for what? Even the Rama only mentions it as like it's done. It's a good suggestion, but you don't have to. Okay, 243. Yes.
If the ends get frayed, can you cut it?
It's a good question.
Remember, I had a talit a long time ago, and the strings were kind of like almost melted away, and you said it was okay. I was actually amazed that it was okay. But I bought new tzitzit.
Remember?
It was like they were worn away about, I would say, like 60%.
I remember, like the panel there is on that set. People are very poor.
Yeah.
They couldn't replace things.
Right.
You know.
But they
And
all,
the intent was we're honoring Hashem through trying to do this commandment.
but if you have, I think probably cotton or wool were common enough commodities that you could, because people did for themselves well also back then.
So overall, Simcha, if the tzitzit are separated like that, it's still okay. So if you cut them, it's also okay. You should know, according to the Mekubalim, you're not supposed to cut your tzitzit. Not with metal, at least. Because according to Kabbalah, this is not my realm, by the way, just the Ben Ish Chai mentions this. According to Kabbalah, your tzitzit are similar to a mizbech, to the altar in the Beit HaMikdash, and you're not allowed to bring iron onto the mizbech. And that's why if you go to tzitzit cutters today, see, the Jews, they can think of any chumrah in the book. So they have plastic scissors or glass scissors. Yeah, I saw a guy with diamond edge scissors. You know, I guess that's everyone's got their own little shtick going on. But the truth is that the Ben Ish Chai says you should use your teeth. maybe the Ben Ish Chai's son was a dentist and he wanted people to have business.
This is cutting edge.
For Halakha, we don't follow the code.
Right. But it's still something that I've seen people take into consideration.
Right, of course.
So yeah, that's all right. Let's see 243. Actually,
So that's why you start with those pieces that go to the floor. They last you all night.
You just keep
You just keep
upping the
playing.
ante.
So you get tzitzit with the thickness of a rope. You have them hang down to the floor, and
The ropes are twisted too.
Yeah.
let's do this last halakha.
And then you get stilts with
אורך החוטים השמונה אין פחות מארבעה גודלים. The shortest length that your strings of the tzitzit can be is 4 gudalim, 4 thumbs. A thumb, basically in halakha, is just the width of your thumb, is given to be 2 centimeters.
So it doesn't say thumb or finger. It says thumb. Because it's translated as finger widths. But I don't know. I guess thumb, it means thumb, right?
Thumb.
all thumbs.
ויש אומרים, you know the number of a tefach.
Thumb my nose if you're translation.
Actually, you're right. By the way, you're right. It could be a finger width.
Oh, it could?
I'll tell you why. Because they say that a tefach is 8 centimeters, and a tefach is only 4 fingers. So that would mean 2. So it's the same
Same
thing.
Okay.
Because they always use the 4 fingers when we're talking about hair covering.
Right. So although the most poskim are saying 2 fingers, that's most poskim. V'yesh omrim yud bet gudalim. Some say it has to be 12 widths. That would be 24.
Yeah. So this is kind of funny, but they put in 12 finger breaths, but they mean B-E-R-E-A-D-T-H, not B-E-R-E-T-H-S, which is breaths. But
Someone couldn't spell.
You could send a letter to the editor.
Yeah, I mean.
V'chen nohagim, and this is the custom, 24.
Yeah.
Ulemala en lehem shiur, and above that, there's no amount of how much it has to be. ואם עשו ארוך יותר מדי, יכול לקצרו, ואין בזה משום תעשה ולא מן העשוי. Says the Rama, if your tzitziot are too long, you're allowed to shorten your tzitziot, there's no problem with that. אחד מהחוטים יהיה יותר ארוך, says Maran, one of the strings must be longer, top of page 244. כדי שיכרוך בו הגדיל, what?
In general?
Yeah, one of the strings.
Right. That's every
corner. In order so that you could tie it around, you have to loop it around.
Oh, okay.
You understand?
So when they hang though, does one have to be longer?
One of it's always
No,
Okay, it's been
no,
tied.
no.
No.
My blue string is much longer than the rest. See this? The blue is and the white that are
Yeah.
long are the same tzitzit. But you had to give me equal amounts of both because I need to be able to use them to do all the knots and the ties. If they were a regular size tzitzit, they would disappear halfway through the knots. So that's why they are longer. Maran is telling you a practical thing. היינו החלק מהציצית שאינו ארוג הגה ושיעור הנזכר יהיה בציצית לאחר שנקשר מלבד מה שמונח על קרן הבגד. It says the Ramah, this size should be after you tie the knots and aside from the part that is sitting on the corner. So I guess he's not counting the part from the hole until the corner, but rather from the corner and on.